Okay, Dr. RJB here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about asthma. Um, now, asthma is a condition where the muscles of the bronchial tubes that lead from the throat down into the deeper areas of the lung go into spasm. We have muscles in the tubes of the lung that can contract and relax, um, and these probably are involved in our ability to cough and things like that, our ability to talk, to control the breathing. When you talk, you have to control your breathing. So there are a number of things that we use to affect our ability to talk, and it's the reason why other animals can't do this, because they have no control over their breathing ability, and the mechanisms of the throat and lungs are not made up for it. But what happens is that these muscles, which are supposed to do a good job, do a bad job. And so the airways become tight, um, uh, because of some irritant or whatever, and then the person has to deal with that. By tightening up the airway, it reduces the amount of oxygen flowing to the lungs, which is very, very uncomfortable. So you get into two types of asthma. Uh, uh, the most common type of asthma that you normally hear about is the person who's wheezing. So they're making noise. I did it with my throat, by the way. That's not wheezing. It's what we call a stridor. And that's noise, basically, is the wheeze. And the wheezing is caused by kind of a whistle that's produced by the tightness of the airway. Now, the other type of asthma is the one that I actually have. It's called cough asthma. And I thought that I was having some issue with my lungs. I thought something else was going on. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that I coughed a lot. I happened to get checked out, and it turned out it was an asthma condition. I went on some medications at that point, but the medications weren't doing anything. And that's when I found out the things that I was allergic to. I had myself desensitized to the irritants that caused the asthma condition, and pretty much my asthma's gone at this point. I do have an inhaler at the house. I use it occasionally, but most of the time I'm fine. So I highly encourage people who have asthma to get checked out by the allergist to see if you might be allergic to something, because if it is related to allergy problems and you get desensitized, you may be able to improve your asthma condition so much. Now, there are people who say, oh, it's because of nerves or stress. Well, it's one of those things, when I take an inhaler, I'm not relieving stress when I take the inhaler. So, when people make these claims, it's all about stress. They're talking out of their butt, I think, to be kind. The thing is that I think it's easy to criticize when you see somebody having an asthma attack and say, oh, it's all stress, it's all in your head, because you see them usually in a panic, and so you think, well, it's the stress that's causing it. No, it's the stress of not being able to breathe that's causing the problem. So, be considerate. There are people still today who die from asthma attacks. Because the breathing is narrowed and the person is not able to get enough oxygen, sometimes they could pass out. Sometimes, other things can happen. A couple of stories about that. One of my patients decided when he was having an asthma attack that he was going to drive himself to the hospital. The neighbor found him lying on the ground in front of the car, called the ambulance, and they took him to the hospital. He never made it to the car. He passed out from his asthma. And if the neighbor hadn't found him, it's quite likely he might have passed away. Another, another story about this is there was an emergency room doctor who died of asthma. When they went into the call room where he was at, they found all kinds of inhalers on the table in front of him, but he was dead. And the sad thing is that all this doctor had to do was to leave his call room, walk into the emergency room, and say, "Hey, I need help. I'm having trouble breathing." Instead, he was treating himself with his inhalers, and he got caught. He passed out and never recovered. So it's not something we want to play with. So if somebody's having a problem with asthma, they need to be treated and treated aggressively. If it's really bad, you go to the emergency room so they can give you some oxygen, give you some medication, and treat you so that everything goes fine. We do try to treat people at home if at all possible, but if it's really bad and you're having trouble breathing, it's the worst it could be as a trip to the emergency room. That's all. Okay, take care, and hope you see some of the other videos.